everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this EF Education for Life session, Breaking the Bias in Sports. My name is Leslie Anselme. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the program manager for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for EF Education First North America. This month, EF is celebrating Women's History Month. And throughout the month of March, we have held programs and workshops that have covered everything from incorporating your passion into your work, intersectional feminism, avoiding burnout, and leading as a woman of color. We have also been highlighting the achievements of our many amazing women here at EF Education First. If you don't know EF, we are a culturally immersive education company. You may have heard about our educational tours and our language schools, but we really do a little bit of everything, including professional cycling. So today we're so happy to be joined by two professional cyclists from Team EF Education-TIBCO-SVB, Emily Newsom and Lauren Stevens. Soon we're going to dive into a conversation with these two remarkable women. But first, let's hear an introduction from Mia Norrman, president of EF Pro Cycling.
Thank you so much, Leslie, and lovely to virtually see you all. We are extraordinarily excited to this year be the title sponsor of this amazing women's world tour team. And I will tell you a little bit more about them. So the original mission really of this team by Linda, who is the founder of it, was to really help women reach their goals and be the best they possibly can be in a very healthy and supportive environment. And I think, from what we've seen so far, it's been a great start to the season with a lot more exciting things to come. This team has 14 riders, 6 nationalities, and speaks 6 languages and counting. This is the inaugural World Tour season for this team, and it's quite a big step up from the previous year in both budgets and expectations. But I think you'll hear a little bit more from 2 of our riders a little bit later on. But it's a big step up, and it's an exciting year to come. One of the very important things, and obviously one of the big reasons for this talk today, is it's breaking down the bias. And one of the main elements is pay equity. And we have a long way to go, but I think we as EF, it was a very important point for us that when we entered women's professional cycling, that we had to set the same minimum salary for our women's team as we had for our men's team. We are joined by a small selective groups of other teams who do the same within the World Tour, and we're hoping that the momentum that we're bringing will make sure that all of the teams adopt the same standards throughout the World Tour. This is obviously only one element of kind of the whole equality in the sport, but an incredibly important cornerstones. And many of our riders have stories of working multiple jobs before this minimum pay was institutionalized. And it's very, very hard when you work multiple jobs to be able to be the best professional riders that you can possibly be. And this type of initiatives make sure that we take one step towards some real equality where, all of our women can do this for real and be a professional cyclist at the very top level. And I'm sure we'll hear more of those individual stories later on. Let me first start by introducing Lauren Stevens, who joins us today from Texas. Let me read you a little bit about Lauren's background. Lauren Stevens is the EF Education-TIBCO-SVB veteran, the former math teacher turned professional cyclist with a team in 2013 after receiving a cycling grant from the Silicon Valley Cycling Foundation. She has raced with a California registered squad for the duration of career minus the 2018 season. The top-ranked U.S. woman on the UCI standings in 2020, Lauren hoped to earn one of 4 spots for the road team at the 21 Tokyo Olympics. She was devastated to receive a call from USA Cycling to say that she hadn't been selected for the squad. But 2 days after learning of her non-selection, this is a good story, Lauren won Unbound Gravel. And less than 3 weeks later, she won the biggest race of her career, the US National Road Championships. Lauren will therefore wear the Stars and Stripes this season. Lauren says that the highs and lows of the last year are indicative of the successes and the setbacks she has experienced for most of her career. Her results come from steadily chipping away at her goals each season and from a high level of motivation combined with a healthy dose of stubbornness. Lovely to see you, Lauren. Can't wait to hear more from you. Very shortly. We also have Emily Newsom with us here today. Emily. And a little bit of an introduction to Emily. After earning her master's degree in piano performance, super impressed for somebody who can't play anything. It is an incredible talent to have. Not only are you a professional cyclist, you have another talent that I don't have. Emily took up running, but found herself frequently injured. She began racing triathlons, and after her husband pointed out her natural aptitude for the time trial bike, she switched over to cycling. Immediately, she saw constant progress, and she was hooked. Shortly after she began to focus on riding, Emily became pregnant with her daughter and took some time off. With support from her husband and in-laws, Emily returned to cycling a few months after her daughter's birth. Growing up with 9 siblings, Emily was homeschooled and spent her free time playing the piano, leaving her with little opportunity to play team sports. Today, she says that teamwork and the resulting camaraderie are a big part of what drives her to excel as a cyclist. Emily will race a mixed road, gravel, and mountain bike program in 2022. She will compete in the Lifetime Grand Prix, a series of 6 off-road races held across the United States. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're super excited to have you on board for this season, and can't wait to hear a little bit more about your personal stories. So thanks again, and Leslie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mia. And in just hearing those bios, one word just came to my mind, and it's dynamic. You both are so amazing. We heard a little bit about your careers and how you got started, but in your own words, could you tell us a little about yourselves and how you got started in professional cycling?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, so as Mia said, I did come from the music world. And so that definitely seems quite distant from being a musician. But when I completed my master's degree, I was fairly burnt out just of the rigor of being a musician, the politics that were involved with being accepted to certain programs and competitions. And so really wanted a completely new scene. So I started to run. And from there, I met my husband and ventured a bit into triathlon, but ultimately ended up on the bike and was quite excited to learn you can actually do that for a living.
Amazing. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah, for me, I was always an endurance athlete. I ran cross country in high school and my first year of college. But after my first year of college, I decided to stop running competitively. And about a year and a half later, I got a bike from my sister who had thought she wanted to ride, but decided she didn't. So I got my first road bike. And I would only ride on the days when the flags were like down, so it wasn't windy. But we live in Texas, so I quickly learned that you would rarely ride. So I would run on days where it was windy, and I would ride on days where it wasn't. But then eventually, I started to ride more. And then I met my husband at a bike shop, who introduced me into racing. And I began racing on the local level. And like Emily, I had no idea it was something you can make a career in. I actually began teaching while still racing on the local level. And after 3 years of teaching, I won some big races on the national level. And that was in 2013. And I've been on the team TIBCO since then.
Wow, I love both of these stories of just doing so much, but also sticking to your passions. Um, so to kick it back, the theme for International Women's Day this year was Break the Bias. And we were charged with imagining a gender equal world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that's equitable and inclusive. And we know that women's sports and women's athletes don't always get the recognition that they deserve. So, how do you each work to break the bias within your roles on this team?
For me, in my personal life, I've been very lucky to not feel those biased. I see the inequalities in men's and women's cycling, but fortunately, since I've been in racing, it's it's grown tremendously from 2013 to now, and I think seeing the as women, we're working harder and harder to break those bias, and we're always moving forward. Um, that's what drives me to keep going. And yeah.
Emily?
Yeah, I would say I also have been, quite privileged to be very supported in what I do. I just love also to be in this sport and to be a mom and to be able to show to other moms or be an example that, hey, you can do more than one thing at once. And something like cycling, now that we are seeing that increase in pay, it's actually viable to go into it as a profession and also continue to be a mom. And you can fill these multiple roles. And with the support, you can do them both well and feel confident and encouraged as you pursue them both.
Love that. Emily, you mentioned support, and I know for us EF employees, we were so excited to hear about this team and the fact that we were paying these team members the minimum salary of the male world tour riders. We also talk about like supporting women a lot during Women's History Month, and really all year, especially at EF. We have so many women at this company. But what does that support look like on this team for you? How have you felt support? How do you show support for your teammates?
Yeah, I think multiple ways for sure. In practical ways, because that's how you see it initially, is you see the manifestation of being paid a salary that equals the amount of work you put into your job. I see it manifest itself in practical ways. So one, I don't have to worry so much about, do I need to pick up an extra job, or can I pay the bills with what I am making? Also, just things like, we live in a little fixer upper house, and we've had to put a lot of repairs and maintenance on hold, basically, because, yeah, I'm in a career that took so much time and so much dedication, but didn't necessarily equal with the pay. So now that is equaling out, we can plan on, oh, cool, we're going to do this update in the fall, or we're going to finally be able to do this improvement. Or, just things like taking a vacation, taking time off for my husband from his work. Those are all things that now I can actually feasibly plan on. And we just couldn't for a long time. And then as far as support within the team, it's been so incredible to be in Europe and immediately see that step up in the amount of staff that we had constantly supporting us. Having the doctor check in every week to 2 weeks just to see how we're doing. And, if we need help on anything or need advice, he's right there for us. And same with the directors and the management. I feel like every need that we have is met even before we realize that we needed it. So for me, I can completely focus on my training, my recovery, and how I can be the very best athlete I can for the team, since they're filling all these other roles that I don't have to worry about anymore.
Thanks, Emily. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great relief of pressure, I guess, that now we know things are, like Emily said, are being taken care of before we've even thought about them. Before, in the past, everything always got done but we weren't sure when it was going to get done. And now we don't have to worry about that. And I think that allows us to do a job that we are passionate about. And I think sometimes when you do a job that you're passionate about, you accept that you may not get paid as well, but that's not what has to happen. So now we're getting both. We're getting to do a job that we love, and the money is matching our work that we're putting into it.
I love that. Thank you both so much for sharing. I think, we hear a lot about women's professional athletes and teams, in other sports like basketball and soccer, really fight for better pay or equal pay, compared to their male counterparts. Can you talk a little bit about kind of raising your voice as women and as professional athletes for that equal treatment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for the public to know the difference. And if we just stay quiet, then people will just assume that we're getting the same as the men. And I think it's been very important and for women to speak up. And you're seeing it also in all the Flanders races this spring are giving equal prize money, and that's insane compared to the amount of prize money we were getting before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what Lauren said for sure. And having transparency, I think, is very important. So being transparent about what is the income. Like when I started cycling, I had no idea what do people actually make. And you can't really find any information about it. Nobody really talked about it. And now it's more in the light, what do female cyclists actually make, and okay, that's a problem. Let's take care of it. So it's really neat to see that it is more transparent. And like Lauren said, we are getting an increase in prize money now, which makes it so, yeah, we're not just fighting for that top step because we want the points or we want the team to look really good, which of course we do. But also it's really nice to be like, okay, we're rewarded for pulling off this amazing teamwork and putting a teammate on the top step.
Yeah, thank you both so much for sharing. And I think even those of us who, aren't professional athletes and, sit down all day for our jobs can also, resonate with the idea of, wanting equal pay for our work, wanting to be paid fairly. And we announced, or EF Education first announced last year that we'd be partnering with a historically Black college and a tribal college here in the United States to create some more access points to the world of cycling and professional cycling, including actually riding or working in like sports management or marketing. And I think it's great. It's a great step for helping people to kind of jump over any barriers to success. As you were saying, pay is such a huge barrier to success. As professional cyclists with this experience, though, what are some ways you think that we can make cycling more accessible for people of maybe different genders, races, ethnicities, socioeconomic status, or other barriers?
I mean, I think it's great seeing companies like yourself step up, as riders, as someone who's already doing this activity, who's already participating in this sport. We're not an expert in how to get more people into it because we had our own path, and we can relate directly to people that are following that same path. So it's great to see companies like EF Education stepping up and helping these barriers be broken.
Yeah, completely. And also, I think for me, one way I found that really helps is just being open on social media, which is a platform I use quite a bit, especially Instagram, to tell my story and to tell the ups and to tell the downs and to, go back to when I first started and I was wearing, I would never wear it now, all the wrong stuff on the wrong bike. But it worked. And a lot of people relate to that because that's how they start. They don't know, what do I need to wear? What do I need to ride? And then also just being open in general, when I'm riding, or if someone from the community wants to ride with me, then okay, yeah, maybe it's not the pace I want to go, but that's okay because I have this chance to meet with someone who has a lot of questions and I can help them get a foot into cycling where they might not have somebody else who can help them with that.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like bringing people along with you as you go. And I love that you said, it might not be your pace, but it's a pace that, they can do, and you can bring them into this world in that way.
Mhm.
Um, your team's founder, Linda Jackson, an amazing cyclist herself, mentioned in a recent interview that her goal is to make this team a top 5 world tour team by helping your team reach their full potential. So, in the world of professional sports, what goes into unlocking one's full potential?
Hmm.
I think a lot of what's already like we kind of talked about, having that support
Mhm.
definitely helps unlock your potential because now you have the time and you have more mental energy and less stress to be able to focus on what you can really do. For me personally, what I've noticed this season is we've connected more as far as actual workout numbers with a particular coach who looks at all of our workouts and what we're doing. And I found this really cool because they've really been able to target what I excel at. And in the past, even though I kind of knew and I knew this is what I'm good at, I've never really had somebody say, okay, you are just really phenomenal in this area. So let's make sure you're in the races that fit you, And so I feel like I've had this opportunity to be myself, but that's really good. I'm not fighting my body to be somebody I'm not, or to be some type of racer I'm not, but I'm actually embracing who I naturally am and being able to accomplish those goals because I have that support.
I love that idea of individualized support. Lauren, anything to add?
Yeah, for me, so I'm the team captain for the team. And I think one thing I like to really focus on is how to figure out how to use, like Emily pointed out, like she now has the staff telling her what her strengths are. And I've always made that a big goal of mine, of figuring out how to use everybody's strengths within a race to accomplish a team goal. Cycling is a very individual sport, but when we're out there in the race, it's a very team sport. And from the outside, it's hard to see that. But like Emily pointed out, she has different strengths than, say, me. And it's important to use us throughout the race. And that's how we're going to be able to reach our full potential as a team.
I love that you mentioned how much cycling is a team sport. I personally got to go to Paris to watch the final stage of the Tour de France a few years ago, and it was the first time I got to see cycling is such a team sport, and you can see everyone working together to win. And I was just so in awe of it. So I'm so impressed by professional cyclists. As we close out, I have 2 questions, that people may want to know, like maybe advice to take with them from you both. So I can pose them both at the same time. What advice do you have for women looking to make their mark in their respective worlds, either like on their teams, at their jobs, or in their communities? And also, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Well, the advice I always give people in cycling is to train harder than you race. So you can apply that to other parts of life for sure. Like you can prepare more than you need to for your meeting so that you are ready for that meeting. So that's the best advice I feel like I give people. The best advice that I've been given, man, I've been given so much advice. Work hard. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's important to, especially when it comes to athletes, and this can be applied to the workplace also. And this is advice that's been given to me, is you're not competing against you're not trying to beat another person. Like, you're trying to win the race. Like, and it's not a personal thing, and you've got to fight and not take it. Like, now we have friends that are on other teams, and that becomes difficult in a race. You have to set that aside, and realize that you're fighting to win the race. You're not trying to beat that person next to you.
I love that. Emily?
Yeah, I'm kind of stumped with the advice part too, because like Lauren was saying, I feel like we do get a fair amount of advice, especially because we're so strongly supported. A few, I guess, that stand out to me. One is a quote my husband likes to use, and I can't quote it for you because it's quite long, but it's by Teddy Roosevelt, and it's about the man who steps into the ring and basically dares to fight and dares to take a chance and dares to do something that he or she is scared to do. But how much better to try than to sit on the sidelines. I think it says something about the timid and shy souls who sit on the side. And that always really stands out to me because, it is really scary sometimes lining up, and it's a race that maybe doesn't really suit me very well, or it's rainy, and it's going to be really slippery. And the last thing I feel like doing is racing really hard for 3 hours down some windy mountain. But realizing, like, I love this and I crave this adventure and I crave this challenge. And when I'm done with it, I'm going to be so proud of myself that I did do it. And I'm going to be so grateful that I'm not sitting inside on the couch watching someone else do it. I'm doing it. Yeah. And then also, I guess, making your mark. One thing for me that's just been very consistent throughout my career as both a musician and as a cyclist is not giving up, because there's been just so many times that I wanted to, and it just felt too hard, and I don't want to do this anymore. But taking the chance or taking the time to evaluate, why am I doing this, what was my original reason, and sticking to it and believing in yourself, and taking the opportunities that come, and also realizing that it may not always look like what you thought it would look like, but that's okay. And oftentimes that's more beautiful than we would have imagined. So following, what you're passionate about and just not giving up.
Thank you both so much. I know this was such a brief conversation, but you both dropped so many gems for myself and our audience today. I feel so inspired to work harder, over prepare, follow my passions. And as we close out Women's History Month, I just want to say, let's just keep continuing to break the bias. Or as we're saying at EF, doors were made to be open. So let's just keep going. And I hope you both and everyone watching today has a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
very much.